Imagine being able to know how another person thinks and feels and will respond just by looking at their face and the way it's structured. What an advantage! And it's one you've just gifted yourself with. I'm Samantha Joy. Congratulations on taking the time to watch this video. You are going to learn more about yourself and every single person around you than you ever thought possible. Face reading's been around for as long as anyone can remember. The science of how skull and facial features influence human behaviour has been well documented and verified. From Aristotle and Plato to Da Vinci and Michelangelo, for centuries, great minds have known that we can understand ourselves by understanding our structure. Learning about face reading will help you to know and understand yourself and your behaviour, and to understand the behaviour of other people without taking the behaviour personally. We're always assessing other people by the way they look, whether we're aware of it or not. This information will help you to do it consciously and with acceptance rather than judgment. You'll find that what you learn today will be almost 100% accurate, unless the face that you're reading has had some plastic surgery or major dental work. The best part is that, unlike body language, your face can't lie. I mean, this could just as easily mean I'm cold or I've got a sore back as I'm feeling defensive. But I can't say, no, this is just the face I put on to do the video. I normally keep my other one home in a jar. We subconsciously acknowledge various different trait behaviours without even realising it. Have you ever heard the phrase, cop it on the chin, or I'll take it on the chin? Yeah? I want you to think for a moment about the kind of people who use that phrase. I can guarantee that they won't have receding chins. When we understand some of the traits of the chin, for example, the more forward projecting the chin is, the more tenacious and determined the person is. Or if the person has a very wide chin, they tend to be very confrontative. Come on, I'll take it on the chin. And have you heard the phrase highbrow? It's a phrase used to describe, well, the more discerning kind of person. And truth be told, people with high eyebrows are more discerning. People whose eyebrows are high set tend to be more selective about what they do and about who they do it with. Once they've made a commitment, though, they'll stand by that commitment 100%. It's important to treat people with high eyebrows with just that little bit more formality and respect, especially in public. Keep your distance. Casual touching is not the thing to do. You can say something crass to a highbrow and watch their eyebrows crawl all the way up over the top of their heads. If you have high eyebrows, consider making the first move a little sooner. And remember that people with low eyebrows are the polar opposite to you, so don't get offended if they get all touchy-feely. They're more casual and informal. Okay, the lower the eyebrow is above the eye, the more inclined toward touching and being touched the person is. They'll cheerfully have a go at most new things and decide later, after they've had a chance for a bit of a think about it, as to whether they want to go back and enjoy that again or not. They're really very casual. You can relax around a person with low eyebrows. If your eyebrows are set low over your eyes, then understand that people with high eyebrows need their space. Choose to be a bit more formal with them, especially the first time you meet. Let them make the first move. Understanding even just this one trait can help you deal with people so much more effectively. Don't rush in and start hugging people with high eyebrows. They need to feel respected. They want to get to know you first. Whereas a person with low eyebrows will often use touch to get to know you. Touch puts you on the same level as them. The shape of the eyebrow also holds very interesting clues to the person's behaviour. A person with straight eyebrows tends to be more reserved. They like to keep control. They know exactly what they want and how they're going to get it, and they're going to have it their way and with no stress along the way. If you have really straight eyebrows, you might like to try going with the flow a bit more. Give yourself a bit more freedom and flexibility, especially when you're dealing with people whose eyebrows are arched. A high arch to the eyebrow means that the person is dramatic and they will express everything that they're feeling, both verbally and non-verbally. They will immerse themselves in whatever emotion and enjoy it to the hilt until it's over. If you have these eyebrows, then people with straight across eyebrows probably accuse you of exaggerating. Be gentle with them. They hate confrontations and they tend to find your freedom of expression very confrontative at times. When you see a balanced semicircle eyebrow, Paul McCartney's got the best one. You're looking at a lovely trait. It's somebody who can see how everything can go together. People, situations, opportunities can flow in perfect harmony for the greatest good of all. If there's a sharp point on the top of the eyebrow, you're looking at an original. This is someone who can actually see a whole project from start through to finish. Now, if you're an employer, this is a good person to hire, but chances are they're already self-employed and doing very well, thank you very much. This is Tony, and the trait that we're looking at here is the sharp top side to the eyebrow. This is a very special trait. When you see it, take note, because it means that this person is a producer. They're actually able to see a project through from start to finish, which is quite rare, as those of us without that trait would know. Tony, it's important for you to know that unless you produce the wonderful designs you have inside of yourself in the outer world, you'll tend to become morbid, my friend, and quite disgusting to live with. You are an original. You need to produce. You need to be able to bring out into the world all the wonderful visions you have inside of yourself, and you have the ability to do that. The eyes also have a lot to say about how the person will react and respond. How far apart are your eyes? If they're very close together, then you'll be very focused on where you have to be and when. You like things to be done right now. And anybody who's unable to do the right thing at the right time will feel your wrath. After all, you do your best to make sure that you set the right example and everybody else should follow, right? No. And the reason is your priorities might not be theirs. The distance your eyes are set apart, it's sort of like a camera lens. It helps to understand that the closer your eyes are to your nose, the more you focus down on what you see as needing to be done right now. Whereas a person with very wide set eyes, with room for another eye and a half in between, well, they see the whole picture. They see life a lot more philosophically. They understand that everything will take care of itself given time, and where they are is more important to them than where they're going, so they're often late. If you have this face trait, it's a good idea to limit your priorities and fulfill them on time. You know you mean to anyway. This is a good trait to be aware of, even if it's only from a time perspective. I have a friend with very wide set eyes. If I want him to be at my place at 2 o'clock, I'll tell him 11 and hope he turns up on the right day. Now, as I tend toward time-focused, intolerant eyes myself, this used to drive me completely up the wall, till I realised that it was a genetic trait, not a personal insult. We are our traits, and understanding the basic differences, can make life so much easier at every level. All right, let's take a look at the way we think. Now, this is indicated by our foreheads. Someone whose forehead slopes like this likes things to happen fast. Just tell them the bottom line, because that's what it is that they're interested in, and then let them go off and do it. If you have a forehead that looks like this, and you're talking to a person whose forehead looks like this, please understand that they think very differently to the way you do. And if you try to give them information the way you like to have it, bottom line, let me fill in the blanks myself, you'll lose them. People with vertical foreheads, they need to see the whole picture before they do anything. If you leave blank spots, then you'll get resistance from them. So, tell them the big picture first and take them through it step by step. That's the fast way to get information through to them. This is incredibly important stuff. If you're presenting new information to someone, take a look at their forehead. If it slants back, only tell them the bottom line and give them as much information as they ask for. If it goes straight up, give them the whole picture and don't try and hurry them. If you're a salesperson, the awareness of just this one trait will boost your sales enormously. Because think about it for a moment. If you try and present information to somebody who has a slanting forehead, step by step, you'll bore them, you'll lose them. If you try and present some information to somebody with a straight up forehead, just the bottom line, they'll be convinced that you're trying to put something over them. Look at the forehead of the person you're talking to. In recognizing and honoring another person's structure, you automatically benefit yourself. Okay, ready for something new? This next one's an interesting one. We're looking at the height of the head. Which is higher, the front of the head or the back of the head? Because if the front of the head is higher, then the person operates pretty much on the I think, therefore I am. In fact, they devote so much time to thinking that they'll either run out of time to do anything, or they'll actually believe that they have done it because they've thought it through so very thoroughly. They do try to get things done, but when they're looking at a project, they keep finding fascinating new avenues that they just have to go off and explore until actually physically doing something can seem like an interruption. If you have a forehead that looks like this, focus, focus, focus. Try to accomplish at least one thing a day. Complete one thing every day. Now, if the back of your head is higher than the front, like this, you can actually feel it. Put your hand on top of your head, okay? If it looks like this, you'll do, and then you'll think about it. Because if your hand looks like this, if it needs doing now, right? Well, yes, but when it's time to think, stop and think. Trust me. And if your hand stays flat, well, you're probably level-headed then. Good on you. Another thing to look for, so that who you're talking to will be able to understand what you're saying more easily and accept it more positively, is the width of the face compared to the overall length.
Not a way of typing people by the way they look. We are all type 1, 2 or 3 depending on our relationship and on who we're with. Danny here, say hi to Danny, is a type A. Now we're looking here at the width of the face compared to the length of the face. So Danny has a wonderful long thin face. It's longer than it is wide by quite a bit. Okay, so what we're looking at here is learned confidence. This man has worked hard to learn what it is that he knows, and he's proud of his accomplishments, as he jolly well should be. He is his accomplishments. He has worked hard to earn his security, and he'll do whatever it takes to protect that, am I right? And if you push him harder than he's prepared to go, he will fight you every step of the way.
That's a fact.
That's a fact, I know. Christy, on the other hand, has a very wide face compared with the overall length. You're looking here at somebody who will bite off more than they can chew and then chew like crazy, am I right? Right. Yes.
If the person has a long, thin face, then they learn things step by step at their own pace. Now, the longer and the thinner the face is compared to the width across the eye sockets, the more cautious the person tends to be. They've worked hard to get where it is that they are, and it's important to them that you respect their accomplishment. If this is you, then you already know that you can do anything if you deal with it one step at a time. So the next time your security is feeling at risk, then decide how you're going to deal with it step by step. And choose independence when you're asking for help, especially if it's from somebody with a much broader or wider face than yours. People with very broad faces, well, they'll bite off more than they can chew, and then they'll chew like crazy. Sure, I'll give it a go. How hard can it be? Just give me a manual, I'll figure it out. They can't understand why everybody doesn't have their self-confidence. They don't even see the obstacles they plough right through. Their primary need, people with wide faces, is to be needed. And if they're not needed, or if they don't feel involved, then they get very discouraged. If this is you, remember there's a difference between being a crutch and being a shoulder to lean on. See, because being needed is so important to you, you'll often take on more than you can reasonably handle. So be wise. Supporting people's independence is much better than doing it for them just because you can. People with long, thin faces learn differently to people with wide, broad faces. If we were teaching somebody with a long face the alphabet, they'd learn like this: A, B, C, D. Just let me go over that again. A, B, C, D. I'm just going to try that one more time, make sure I've got it right. A, B. Okay, but if we were teaching somebody with a very broad face, the way they learn is, right, okay, A, B, C, D, yeah, right. What was the numbers again? This is not a way of typing people by the way they look, because it all depends on who we're with at the time. If you're with somebody who has a very much broader face than you, then while you're with that person, you will be the more cautious one, and you will like to take things more slowly, step by step. But if you're with somebody who has a longer and thinner face than you, then while you're with that person, you'll be the confident one. Yes, let's just give it a go. What the hell, how hard can it be? And we've all been with a variety of different people. So there are no excuses. We do know, if we think about it for a moment, how the other person feels. I'm going to tell you now about my most favourite trait on the entire face. You ready? It's these lines here. I have really good ones. These are your empathy lines, not sympathy, empathy. They're the most beautiful lines you can imagine, because they say, I view the world with compassion. People with the longer and deeper these lines, the more empathetic the person is, the more they're likely to laugh with you or cry with you, because they truly understand. Now, they have nothing to do with age, and they have nothing to do with crows, and they don't really have very much to do with laughter either, because they're more from an understanding smile. You know, I have a client who is 93 years old, and she has none of these lines, and she hasn't had a facelift. And I have another client, and he's just turned 4, and he has 3 of the longest, deepest lines I've ever seen. And yet, they're the trait most reviled by Western society. Isn't that bizarre? It's amazing how we're trained to do our best to obliterate beautiful traits like this, which brings me to remind you, make sure the face you're reading is the face you're reading. You can't do this stuff on Michael Jackson, for example. And it's very interesting to note that a trait, surgically altered, can grow right back again if the behaviour that has caused that trait hasn't changed. Epicanthic folds are probably the best example of this. They're the folds of skin that can actually cover the eyelid, so you can't see the eyelid at all. Now, this is the trait of intellectual justification. Don't bother arguing with somebody who has these folds, because you can't win. Their goal is to prove you wrong so that they can prove themselves right. I actually had two friends. One who's had her epicanthic folds removed twice so far. They keep growing back. And the other, well, he lost his in a workshop that I do around face reading, and he lost them in a matter of moments in front of the entire class. It was the most amazing thing. He asked me, Samantha Joy, what causes these folds? And I explained to him, they're blinkers that we grow from fear, because when we could see everything, we got hurt. We didn't like it. So we chose what we could see. And I watched him take it in, because he had a straight up forehead, and think about it, and then realise he didn't need his blinkers anymore. And in front of the entire class, he lost them. And you could see his eyelids. Exposed eyelids means you can see more of the overall picture. It means give me action. These people hate red tape. Their goal is to get where they're going as quickly and efficiently as they possibly can. Just get out of my way. This is what we need to do. If you have this trait, you might consider telling people why you do what it is that you do, especially if they're involved in it as well. The angle of the eyes is telling also. If your eyes angle up toward your forehead, then you'd probably make quite a good executive, because you're able to pick out what's wrong real fast. Crooked pictures will drive you nuts. While we're on eyes, take a look at the person's irises. Do they have really big irises with not much white in the eyes? If so, then you can express your emotions freely, especially if they have maybe arched eyebrows and a big top lip as well. These people will not only express their emotions fully, but they'll expect you to express yours as well. If this is you, then you need to understand that people with small irises, very much more white in their eye than colour, they feel really uncomfortable around extreme emotional displays, especially if they've also got a thin top lip and straight across eyebrows. Are you beginning to see how these traits work together? When these very different traits get together in a relationship, then you hear conversations like, "You never tell me you love me," and responded to, "You should know I love you. Here, I'm here, aren't I? I bring in a paycheck, I support you and the kids." If your partner has small irises and you have very much bigger ones, then know that it's not as easy for them to express emotion as it is for you, and don't try to force it. It won't work. They respond better to affection than to emotion. And if you're the one with the small irises and your partner has big irises, allow them to express how it is that they're feeling. I know it makes you uncomfortable, but trust me, it will be worth it. One last word on eyes. If the eyes are very deep set, then the person keeps himself to himself, lives pretty much inside of his head, because it usually is a man. If this is you, then you're probably a serious sort. Lighten up. Maybe open up a little. Life can be fun if you let it. And if your eyes bulge out, well, you'll already know how to enjoy life. You trust that everything will work out, and so it does, because you know how to make it happen. Good on ya, keep up the good work. Noses. Now, I know you've been waiting for this one. If you have a ski jump nose, then I would want you to look after me if I was sick, because you would be a wonderful caregiver and you would plump my pillow and make me chicken soup. Because people with noses that turn up like that, they need to be able to look after the people that they love personally, hands-on. And if they can't do that, then they feel as if there's something missing. If you have a ski jump nose, don't be upset if the person you're trying to care for says, "I don't have time." Okay, because chances are, if they're saying things like that, then they probably have a nose like this. Okay, a beaky nose. See, while you're caring for people on a one-on-one basis, they're trying to look after absolutely everybody. Oh, and it feels like the weight of the world is on their shoulders and nobody appreciates them. If you have a beaky nose, and you're lucky enough to be with a scoopy-nosed person, don't be too busy for them. Show them you love them by giving them quality time, because it's more important to them than anything else you could do. And you scoopy-nosed friends, when you're with us beaky people, help us to make each moment with you count by understanding our need to be productive and to talk about facts and figures first. Then when all the materialistic stuff is out of the way, then we can spend guilt-free time just with you. Nostrils. The wider the nostrils, the more self-reliant a person is. Just tell them what you want done and then leave them alone, because they're going to do it their way anyway. Have you got wide nostrils? It's great to be independent, but it's good to ask for other people's opinions as well, especially if you're not the one in charge. And if you've got very narrow nostrils, okay, trust yourself. Remember that people like people with initiative, and that the only say-so that really counts is the final say-so in most cases. So be responsible for your own decisions. Seek your own approval first, and you'll be amazed at how much every relationship you have will improve. One other thing to check with noses, and that's the angle of the underside. If it angles down like this, then it's good to preface your comments with things like, you won't believe this, but, okay, because this is the trait of a skeptic. You won't find these people jumping on the get-rich-quick bandwagons, and fair enough too. They like to have time to gather all of the facts and figures before they jump into anything, because they don't want to get burnt, and they don't want you to get burnt either. If you have a nose like this, try not to be a wet blanket. Other people need to feel good about what it is that they're doing. And who knows? This might be the one. And even if it isn't, well, we all need to learn from our own mistakes. You know we do. If you have a nose that tilts up on the underside, well, take time to do your research before you jump into the next exciting project. Maybe even take that research to a skeptic for their opinion. Remember, skeptics make the best converts once they've had the time to look over all their homework. So make sure you've got your facts and figures, and don't get conned. And now for the bit under the nose and above the lip. This bit here, it's called your fulcrum. If you have a very short one, then chances are it's really important to you that you look just right for every occasion. If your fulcrum is long, then what you do is more important to you than how you look. You've probably got a dry sense of humour. Isn't that interesting? Now, I bet you already know this next one. If you're looking at a mouth that turns up at the corners, then you're looking at the beautiful trait of an optimist. Somebody who expects the best because they know that chances are you get what you expect to get. Good on ya, keep up the good work. And if your mouth turns down, well, then you're probably a bit of a pessimist. You've come to expect the worst because, well, that's what your experience of life has been so far. And I know that what you want to be able to do for the people that you care about is to prevent them from experiencing the pain that you've experienced. But you know, often a better way of doing that is to turn it around a little bit so that instead of preparing for disaster, you prepare them for success. Can you see how just that one little change will stop you being accused of being a pessimist and help people to honour the fact that you're the realist that you know that you are? It's marvellous information to have. And you can actually watch the traits in action. Children's traits especially will speak to you. For example, have you ever seen a little child doing this? Yes. We ask him what's wrong, but he can't tell us. No. This is because your top lip represents talking. What's happened to our little child's top lip? That's right, it's disappeared. It's not there at all. It's only when we give him a cuddle and allow his top lip to come out again that he can actually tell us what it is that's wrong. So the larger the top lip, the more the person actually needs to talk. In fact, a person with a very big top lip will often need to hear it come out of their mouth and go into the air before they realise what it is that they're saying. And of course, some children are actually encouraged not to say how they feel. Boys especially. It's only recently that people have understood how important it is for all people, but especially men, to be able to express their feelings. In fact, have a look around at the men that you know without moustaches, and chances are you'll see a little white line above their top lip. It happens on women too. This is where their lip used to be before they were told it's not okay to say how you feel. It's not okay to cry. Big boys just don't do it. And so they bit their lip until eventually it disappeared. If somebody with a very thin top lip starts talking to you about how they feel, then do them a favour and listen, because if you don't, chances are they won't take that risk with you again, because they learned while they were growing up that nobody really cared how they felt. And so they lost the ability to talk about it. Oh, they'll talk facts till the cows come home, but getting them to talk about how they feel, that's another thing again. So if you're in a relationship with somebody with a thin top lip, don't ask them how they feel, because it's very hard for them to tell you. Ask them instead what they think and take it from there. I'm going to tell you a secret now. You ready? Come here. How would you like to get more ice cream at the ice cream shop, or more servings of just about anything? You look for the person with the biggest bottom lip. It's true. See, your bottom lip represents giving, and the bigger the bottom lip, the more innately generous the person is. I had a friend who had a huge bottom lip. He got the sack from 3 different takeaway places in 6 months, because no matter how often he was told, don't put extra toppings on the pizzas, he just couldn't help himself, and his overriding structure just had him ladling on more. Because it feels good to give. I recently met the most beautiful woman who was constantly amazed that even though she was really dainty, people would take her as, well, intimidating, even threatening. It was her jaw. She had the widest jaw I have ever seen. And people with very wide jaws, well, they often look more threatening than they really actually are. So when I told her about this, she learned to tuck her jaw in, look at people with her eyes, and ask for help when she needs it, instead of bluffing her way through because she could, because people assume that people with big jaws can do more than they often can. Want to know how to move someone out of your space without saying a word? Yeah? Step forward with your right foot and stick your jaw out. Want to bring someone in? Step forward with your left foot, tuck your jaw in. It works. It's amazing. Give it a try. And if you have a narrow jaw, learn to state what it is that you need up front. Be definite. Respect your own authority, and they'll respect it too. Ears. They're another interesting one. How far down are yours? Okay, if they're real low, below your nose, then chances are you're a bit of a perfectionist. But if they're set up high, then you go with the flow and move easily through life most of the time. Look at the height of Marcus's ears compared to his nose. They're actually above his nostril line. This is a man who moves easily through life because this is a trait that says, yes, I'll go with the flow. Cheekbones are another interesting one. The higher and more defined your cheekbones are, well, the greater the need for adventure. If you try and keep a person with very high cheekbones housebound, you'll come home every night and find the furniture's been changed around. The challenge for people with very high cheekbones is to keep the excitement in the same relationship rather than going out and looking for new relationships when the old one gets a bit samey. It's only when you start putting the pieces of the face together that it forms a complete jigsaw. And you can tell an awful lot about a person. For example, this is Art. Say hello, Art.
Hello.
Okay. You can tell by the height of Art's eyebrows that he's a touchy-feely kind of person. You like being touched, don't you, Art?
Yes, I do.
He's a casual kind of guy. You can just come right up and relax with Art. And look at those wonderful empathy lines. He's a man that is compassionate. And if you have a look at his nose, he is also one who cares for the whole community. Okay, he's got a convex nose bridge, he's got a determined little chin, he's got a long fulcrum, so what he does is more important to him than how he looks. And he's got close set eyes, so he's fairly focused on where he needs to be and when. But Art's dominant trait, check out the cheekbones and the blonde hair. When you have cheek blondes and blonde hair together, you've got, I have to have adventure. Okay, so the challenge for you, my friend, would be keeping the same relationship interesting. Okay, because new things, new people, new adventures, new sights, new sounds, new senses, new everything, yeah? Yeah.
Yes.
Art, tell me,
Okay.
are you comfortable at home? Do you have a nice little home that you never ever leave?
No.
No? Where are you
I-
living at the moment?
I kind of have a wandering kind of.
A wandering kind of life. You will never ever find a nomad with low cheekbones. There are more than 100 face traits, and every single one of them means something different, and just about everyone has one trait that leaps off and says, hello. It's only when you start putting them all together into a jigsaw that things get really interesting, because each trait contributes to the whole person. You will have noticed, for example, that certain races have a number of traits in common. Our Australian Aborigines are a really good example of that. For example, they have very thick hair and wide pores and thick skin. They can handle extreme exposure to the elements, exposure that would kill the average person. They've got very wide nostrils. They're extremely self-reliant. They've got a large ridge above their eyebrows. This is a systems ridge. They systematise as many aspects of their experience as they can, and then insist that the entire tribe works within that system, because if they don't, they're dead. But what happens when you take an Aboriginal out of his environment that he has created for his survival? When you take away his system, his self-reliance, his entire structure collapses. This is because we are our traits. One of the reasons I'm sitting down to talk to you is basic centre of gravity. Now, I'm going to introduce you to two very nice people who have two very different centres of gravity, as is evidenced by where their tummy button is.
Cheryl, how would you feel if I told you that you had to spend hour after hour standing under this beautiful Bodhi tree, no chance to sit down, take a load off, you just have to stand, keep moving all day long?
I'm not like that.
No, it's perfectly hideous, it's a dreadful idea. Okay, this is because, like me, we have a high centre of gravity and we are built, my darling, to sit. See, when you have a high centre of gravity, you feel off balance when you're standing up all the time, and you actually need to lower your centre of gravity in order to feel comfortable. So Mario here, who's built to move, will you go and get Cheryl a chair, please, darling, because she really needs one. Because, see, the problem is people with short legs and a long body who are built to move don't understand that people who have long legs and a short body, are built to sit. We think better sitting down. So Mario over here has a low centre of gravity. Look how, put your hand on your tummy button for us, Mario. Check it out. Okay, short legs and a long body as opposed to long legs and a short body. This man is built to move. How would you feel if I told you that you had to spend the entire day sitting in a chair? No chance to get up and move around.
Very impatient. It'd get very.
It'd be appalling.
Yes.
Okay, because sitting puts pressure on a low centre of gravity. And to sit for long periods of time for somebody with short legs and a long body is cruel and unusual punishment. I mean, think of the ultimate short-legged, long-bodied person, the toddler. How many toddlers do you see sitting down with their feet up? Not a whole lot. Okay, this is because you are built to move, Mario, and you need to be... This is because you are built to move, Mario, and you need to be up and moving in order to rebalance yourself. Okay, now, this is interesting because normally long legs and a short body is an adult male trait, whereas short legs and a long body tends to be an adult female trait. So we've got the Bodhi tree producing interesting aspects here. But how often do you hear women saying, if you loved me, you'd take me out dancing instead of sitting there on the couch like a lump? People with short legs and a long body, darling, when you get home, I bet you've got heaps of energy to spend. You want to go out dancing, have a good time. How do you feel when you get home, Cheryl?
I want to sit.
Sit, put my feet up, relax. Should we take this personally? No. How can we when it's such an obvious physical difference? When we understand our structure and take charge of it and take responsibility for our own comfort, things get a whole lot better. Tell people, hey, I'm built to move. Do you mind if I walk around? I think better when I'm on my feet. Tell people, I need to sit down now. If you guys wanted to go out and have a cup of coffee after the video, you sit down, you walk around the table. Okay? If you wanted to exercise together, cycling would be a really good option, or horse riding, because you're sitting down but you're still moving around.
Okay, so one person has very long legs and a short body, which means that they have a very high centre of gravity. So the only way they can feel comfortable and in touch with themselves is to lower their centre of gravity by sitting down. And the other person has very short legs and a long body, and like a toddler, they need to be up and moving in order to be able to balance themselves, because sitting puts pressure on a low centre of gravity and it's physically uncomfortable for a person with short legs and a long body to sit for long periods of time. This is such an important trait to be aware of. There's so much guilt attached to it. People with long legs are forever feeling bad because they need to sit down, and so people think that they're lazy, and they're not. And people with short legs, oh man, they find it so hard to operate in a society where everybody has to sit down and watch television, sit down and do this, sit down and do that. It gets even more interesting when you realise that most men have long legs and a short body, while most women have short legs and a long body, which is why you get so many relationship problems. You don't love me. If you did, you'd take me out dancing. It only takes a few minutes of sitting or standing to rebalance yourself, though. So don't use this trait as an excuse, but do be aware of it. And do honour your structure and the structure of the people that you're with. You'll find life will be a lot more comfortable all round. He's got a skin as thick as a rhinoceros. Well, probably not. But in actual fact, people do have thick and thin skin. And this tells a lot about a person. If you've got thick skin, very wide pores, thick hair, big bones, good on you, half your luck. You'll function easily outdoors, and most things will just roll off like water off a duck's back. You like to have more of just about everything because you can. If your hair is thin and your bones are tiny and your pores are small, well, then you have less insulation. Your skin is thin and you operate better inside than out, where you can create your own protected environment. Less is more, quality rather than quantity. It's important for you to go inside of yourself and create the peace that you need there. It's important for you to take responsibility for your own comfort. So the next time you're looking in a mirror and wishing away your empathy lines or feeling cranky because of a particular part of your face, then stop just for a minute and take a second to remember what that trait means. I hope that you will use the information that you've learnt today to enhance every relationship you ever had, because you can. Thank you for spending time with me. I'm Samantha Joy. Create a wonderful life.